This is Derek. I don't really know the man. I've talked to him a couple times since I've been here this weekend, but I think we all know what emotions are. So with that, I'll just let Derek say his piece.
Okay. Thanks, William.
Hi family, I'm a grateful recovering addict called Derek.
Hey, Derek.
How's everybody feeling this morning?
Cool.
Deal with it. Please allow me to take a moment for myself to let my higher power come into me, and hopefully what I share today will be God-given and not just my ego. Thank you. Last night before I went to bed, I knew exactly what I wanted to say today. And it all sounded good. And that's what a lot of us do here in this program. We try to sound good, and we mask our feelings and what we're really experiencing, and we don't really let people know or accept ourselves what's really going on inside. When I was preparing a week or so ago, thinking about this topic, what came to mind was an experience that I had when I was 12. My grandmother had passed away, and she was the most important person in my life. And it really hurt when she passed on, and I cried and cried and cried for days. And we were on our way to the funeral home, and I was sitting in the back seat, and one of our parents' friends was riding in the front with my mom or dad, I forget which. But I had mentioned that I sure have had a lot of tragedies happen in my life already at age 12. And this other woman turned around and looked at me, and she explained to me that a tragedy is something that happens to other people, or not me, you know. And it really hurt my feelings. And from that time on, it seems that a part of my addiction that has become real prevalent today began to manifest itself. And that was stuffing feelings. Because if I tell you how I really feel, and you come back with a remark like, oh, it's not about you, then that hurts, you know, and then I've got to deal with that. And I didn't know how, because I was already hurt, and I was devastated when my grandmother passed away. And so I don't share my real, true, honest feelings a lot, even with people that I know real closely. Thinking about feelings and emotions, though, I've come to the conclusion that feelings are of the body and emotions are of the mind. And so I'm going to talk about feelings first. You always hear people say, I feel like, you know, whatever. And what does that really mean? I feel like it's going to rain, or I feel like it's going to be hot today. How does that affect me physically? Well, the first thing that I start doing is, well, there's no air conditioning. It's going to be hot. I'm going to be miserable. I'm going to start sweating. I'm going to start stinking, you know. And this process starts happening where instead of just accepting right now how I'm feeling, because right now I'm comfortable, and let that be okay, I let the whole day get out of kilter because I'm worried about all the stuff that I'm projecting because I feel like something's going to happen. And my true emotion right now is a little bit of anxiety. I'm a little nervous. I've done this sort of thing before, but you know, when you get up in front of a group of people and you talk about feelings and emotions, it's like sitting up here naked. You know, because I can't lie to you today. The feelings that I've had clean they're a lot easier to accept and deal with when I'm happy. When things are going good, there really is no dealing with them process. It's only when things bad happen that I have to deal with my feelings. And if I think about that, which I don't often enough, I'm out of balance. I should be just as accepting of my feelings that are good as my feelings that are bad. If things don't work out my way, instead of feeling like I'm owed or I've been cheated or somebody did something wrong to me, I should feel like maybe I need to get with my self-centeredness. Maybe I need to start looking at myself and find out why I can't come to acceptance with whatever it is that is affecting my emotional stability right now. Because it's our feelings, that physical part of our body, that stimulates what the mind does, and vice versa. But most of the time it's a physical or a chemical thing that causes our minds to get messed up. That's why we use drugs. That's why I use drugs. I don't know if there was a chemical imbalance so much as just a psychological need to escape or run away or hide or whatever it was, but that's probably why I started using. I wish I'd have known that then. I probably could have skipped that step, and I'd have 40 years clean. I'm not really sure always how to identify an emotion, but if I constantly remind myself emotions are of the mind, they're not really real. I mean, they are, because you feel them. The emotions that we have stimulate our bodies somehow. Your brain emits some kind of a chemical or whatever to make our bodies feel a certain way. Nervous, nauseous, excited, happy, sad, makes us cry, makes us laugh. So it's the taking care of our bodies physically, eating right, sleeping right, going to meetings. We're in recovery here, so we try to talk to people in recovery. We try to work on spiritual principles and their application in our lives. We reach out and help other people. We humble ourselves to ask other people for help when we need it. And when we take care of ourselves physically, emotionally, we have a better chance, at any rate, to be stable. To not have to deal with all of the garbage that everyday life today can put on us. I was sharing at a meeting Friday night how I've been so stressed because I've been overworked and under-rested for the last month or so. And that's exactly what I'm talking about right now. I wasn't taking care of myself. I can work for 12 hours a day, but if I do that, I've got to rest, and I've got to feed myself, and I've got to give my body the things that it needs in order to maintain its emotional or physical balance. Because if I don't, then my emotional balance isn't going to be there. When I'm tired, I'm irritable. And you might not have did anything wrong, but I'm going to snap your head off for no apparent reason. And then I'm going to be even more emotionally unstable because now I've got to go say I'm sorry. And then when you don't accept it, then I'm going to really be messed up. Well, if you'd have just done this in the first place, yeah. So I have to separate the two, emotions and feelings, because feelings are physical things. They're things that I can either actually touch or sense. And emotions are the result of what it is that I'm sensing or touching. If I stick my hand in a fire, I get a very hot feeling, but the emotion is pain. How do I deal with that? I told my sponsee just a little bit ago I wasn't going to really talk about dealing with emotions and feelings. I was just going to describe the difference between emotions and feelings and what they are to me. But I guess I really do have to talk about how do I deal with it, because like I said, when I'm feeling good and things are going okay, I don't really deal with it. I just kind of let it happen and everything's okay. But when things are bad, how do I deal with it? That's where Narcotics Anonymous comes in. One of the first things that I like to do, I don't do it enough, but I tell everybody this is the way to do it, is open up the basic text to page 94. And on that page it talks about what will happen to addicts who work a recovery program and how you will move away from your self-centeredness in toward a God-centeredness and become more spiritually fit and be more productive in society and more loving and caring and giving. And when I read that page, it puts me right back to at least an awareness of where I know I need to be. And then I got a telephone and a sponsor and people in this fellowship who I dearly love. and I can call people. I can make that connection. You know, there's things outside of the fellowship that I can do in order to deal with my emotions, but if you don't deal with the root of the problem, then another emotion substitutes itself for whatever it is that you're trying to deal with in the first place. I can go out behind the garage and chop wood and vent whatever anger that I've got, and then I've got to deal with the emotion of being tired. You know, the feeling of being tired and the emotions that are associated with that. When I'm tired, I get irritable again. I get irritable a lot when my feelings are on a negative scale. Things can be going really, really well, and life seem like it's just perfect, but if I'm hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, or too serious, it doesn't take much to put me off into that negative realm somewhere. You know, and the next thing I know, I'm judging you, or my children, or my animals, or somebody, or, you know, that's not good enough. You know, why didn't you do this? When really everything's fine. You know, but there's an emotional instability in my mind that makes it so something has to be wrong with something. You know, everything can't just be okay. You know, and I don't understand why that is. I used to use over it. Because nothing was ever okay. And it was real easy for me to tell myself that just so I could use. Well, the whole world's going to hell in a handbasket. I might as well get loaded. You know. And when you start at the whole world, that leaves a broad spectrum of topics to use over. In recovery, working the steps, looking at myself and finding out who I am and hopefully what I want to be, I learned to isolate individual emotions, because I can only do one thing at a time in recovery. You know, when I first did my first 4th step, I had this list of character defects, and I started working on all 30 of them, or however many they were. I couldn't get any of them fixed. When I concentrate on one thing at a time, it gets better. Doesn't matter if I'm successful at dealing with it today. In the long term, it gets better because I'm focused on it. I've come to believe that whatever I focus my mind on, that's what I'm going to be doing. I spent a lot of years not wanting to be like my dad. That was my focus. I ended up just like my dad. When I realized that, then I knew what to work on. I don't want to be like my dad. I don't want to not be like my dad. I want to be me. You know, I know what I believe. I know what I stand for. I want to start pursuing those things that I believe in. And I started focusing on me. And then not being like my dad or being like my dad didn't even come into the picture. You know. And there's other people, places, and things that I don't want to be like or I don't want to be associated with. If I focus on that, that's what I'm going to be about. You know. It's kind of it's a real hard emotion or feeling to identify when you're there, because things seem to be happening that are certainly beyond my control. And I don't understand why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I don't understand why it is I don't want to be where that place is or who that person is or what that thing is. You know, what I do have a fairly decent understanding of is who I am as a result of the steps and you people. You know, and I know what's wrong with me, and I know how I want to make that better. You know, and of course I know what's wrong with all of you.
Okay.
Let me know then.
No, I really don't. I really don't, but you know, have you ever been in a conversation where, you know, somebody's got a problem and you know exactly how to fix them? You know, we deal better with other people's feelings than we do with our own. I don't know why, but, you know, there's just an inherent fear that I have, or apprehension, or whatever it is. I just don't want to deal with my stuff, you know. Your stuff's better. It's funner. Won't hurt me.
Yeah, that's right.
There's some things that I deal with in my recovery today. I've been working a 6-step now for 5 months, and I'm almost done with it. I've come to the realization that my character defects, properly treated and cared for, become characteristics. They're no longer things that are harmful to me or other people if I take care of them. You know, it's like putting oil in your car. It'll run if you put oil in it, but if you don't put oil in it, it's going to break. You know. Other people may view some of the things that I think are okay today as wrong or immoral or maybe even illegal, but if I'm not hurting anybody, including myself, and especially myself, then that's just part of who I am and what I am. You know, and it's easy to justify having moral sickness when you're an addict. You know, some of us eat, some of us gamble, some of us like adult magazines, some of us use. You know, but it's because there's something inside here in our brains that wants something, and it's usually some kind of pleasure or instant gratification. I think that there must be some kind of a physical void that we're having. Either we're not getting enough rest or exercise or quality time with people who care about us and that we care about, that's causing our minds to feel like there's something missing. I need something more. You know, I used Overdose for 20 years and had no clue why I was using it. I thought it was cool and everybody else was doing it, and I got to do it if I want to be cool like everybody else. You know, and these steps, you know, they're a blessing and a curse, because the more I find out about who I am, the less I seem to know and the more work I've got to do on me. And every now and then when I get a break like this retreat, and you get away from the stress of everyday life and family and work and service, then I think it was Meg that was talking about recharging your batteries yesterday. Then you can go back there and you can deal with all that other stuff, and you can start working on me again. When I wrote my 4th step, I wrote about motivation, expectation, acceptance, and truth. And it was the 4th step about self-centeredness. And the first 2 words, motivation and expectations, spell the word me. And the last 2 words, acceptance and truth, spell the word at. And so I was looking at me, and this just happened to work out this way. I didn't do it on purpose. And I knew where I wanted to be at. I wanted to be at acceptance with the way things are. You know, I wanted to understand what's really going on. What's the truth? When you know what the truth is, you know, it's easier to process it and experience it because you can see it and feel it and know what it's about. If you don't know what's really going on, then you don't really know what to fix. It's like taking your car to the garage and saying, I got an electrical problem. You know, you can take the whole motor out and put a new one in, and maybe that'll fix it. Or you can start tracing, you know, all the wires and stuff to try to find out where this problem is, you know. But until you isolate the exact nature of the wrong, your life is going to be somewhat unmanageable. It's going to cause the character defects to cause shortcomings. And those shortcomings are going to cause things in our emotional being that are painful or embarrassing or cause shame or guilt, some kind of pain. My sponsor tells me all the time, no matter what, it's going to be all right, as long as I don't use. And if I just stay clean today, no matter how sick I am for that 24 hours, the committee that works between my ears, how my day ends, humbly before my higher power saying thank you for another 24 hours clean. That's how my day went. It was a good day because it ended with my higher power. And it's my higher power that drives my recovery. My higher power is all around me and it's within me. And it's there 24/7 whenever I need it. And it's simply up to me to just draw on it. You know, I'm one of these addicts who, no, I don't need no help. Thanks anyway. I got it. And the next thing I know, my back hurts. You know. Or worse. You know. I would rather endure physical pain than emotional pain. Physical pain is treatable. But even physical pain is caused by the body not being treated, not the mind. I can take drugs for whatever it is that pains me, but if I don't treat my body, if I don't treat the actual symptom of my body, then I can't get better. You know, you can take all of the painkillers in the world. It's like throwing gas on a fire to put it out. It's not going to make the symptom go away. You need to treat the body, not the symptom. You know, and it's the same thing dealing with emotions. You need to treat the emotion, not the symptom. You know, I have this character defect called lust. Not just lust for sex, but money and gambling and food and anything else that gives me pleasure. I have to treat that symptom if I want to get better. You know, I can't just not go to the porno shop or to the boat. I have to look at why do I want to go there in the first place. I have to find things that are going to fulfill me and make me feel like life is purposeful and I'm being fulfilled and gratified by the way that I feel and the things that I'm doing without having to do those things. Because those things will get me in trouble. I might not use over it, but my life will certainly become unmanageable. You know, and it becomes even more unmanageable when I act out toward you. You know, and I become judgmental because, well, I don't think you're recovering right. You ain't been to a meeting in a long time. I think you need to go to a meeting. You know, my wife tells me that all the time, and she's not a recovering person. I'm grateful for that, though, that she recognizes in me and loves me and cares for me enough to let me know that, hey, Derek, you're not working your program today. You know, sometimes I think, man, I wish I had a recovering wife. Today, I'm glad I don't. But if she chose to become a recovering person, I think that would be okay too. But getting back to treating the symptom or treating the body or the mind, see, that's what fixes me. Symptom of my disease is using drugs. And although it wasn't easy, it was simple. What to do to stop that? Stop using. Then I began on this spiritual journey to discover why I used them. You know, and it's been a pretty great journey so far. You know, I'm finding out about myself. And I don't know if I'm really talking about dealing with emotions and feelings or not right now. I hope that I am. But it's about working this program. It's about using the tools that we've been given to treat our disease. You know, to understand who we are is the only way for me to be able to fix whatever it is that needs fixed. You know, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Whatever's the worst thing going on with me, that's what I'm working on. You know, the little things, they'll either work themselves out or they'll become the squeaky wheel and then they'll get looked at and fixed. Hopefully they'll get fixed, you know. But the answer's in the steps. The answer's on page 94. The answer's at the first step meeting when I see a newcomer walk through these doors and I see how sick and confused he is and how angry they are. And know that I don't want to be like that anymore. And I know why that person's here. Because I was that person once. And if you want what we have and are willing to make the effort to get it, then we have these steps that will change our lives and teach us how to deal with our emotions and our feelings. I guess that's all I got. I'm an addict called Derek.
We kind of started things off, I went to 4, and I want to go back to 3 and have somebody read just for today. I believe someone went and got it. I'm William. I'm an addict. Sorry.
I'm Kim and I'm an addict.
Hi, Kim.
May 30th, loneliness versus being alone. Sharing with others keeps us from feeling isolated and alone. Basic text, page 81. There is a difference between being alone and being lonely. Being lonely is a state of the heart, an emptiness that makes us feel sad and sometimes hopeless. Loneliness is not always alleviated when we enter into relationships or surround ourselves with others. Some of us are lonely, even in a room full of people. Many of us came to Narcotics Anonymous out of the desperate loneliness of our addiction. After coming to meetings, we began to make new friends, and often our feelings of loneliness ease. But many of us must contend with loneliness throughout our recovery. What is the cure for loneliness? The best cure is to begin a relationship with a higher power that can fill the emptiness of our heart. We find that when we have a belief in a higher power, we never have to feel lonely. We can be alone more comfortably when we have a conscious contact with the God of our understanding. We often find deep fulfillment in our interactions with others as we progress in our recovery. Yet we also find that the closer we draw to our higher power, the less we need to surround ourselves with others. We begin to find a spirit within us that is our constant companion as we continue to explore and deepen our connection with a power greater than ourselves. We realize we are spiritually connected with something bigger than we are. Just for today, I will take comfort in my conscious contact with a higher power. I am never alone.
Thank you.
Yeah, I read that this morning with my wife, and I really felt like we needed to read that in this, because that's basically what emotions and feelings are all about. With that, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, and his name is Frank T, I believe. And I've had the opportunity to spend a little time with him, and I like him to stand there before I go to my meals, because I need that hug before I go get my plate. We're not always sure what's going to be on the menu, but I can look forward to that hug. With that, I'd like to introduce Frank.
I'm Frank, and I'm an addict.
Hey, Frank.
I wasn't going to do this workshop because I figured I'm already involved in enough of this convention, let somebody else share. Well, this morning the guy comes up to me and is like, You gonna speak? Do you have a speaker? I'll go check on it. Yeah, there's no co-speaker, so I booked my butt back down here. So needless to say, I'm unprepared.
Deal with it.
Deal with it. And that's a good thing, I guess, because hopefully what comes out will be what's supposed to come out. The experience, strength, and hope of this, for me, is I came from a childhood of... I'm a very emotional person, I guess I need to say first. Very emotional person. I feel things very intensely, and I don't make that real big distinction between feelings and emotions. I feel intensely. When I was a kid, that was not okay. Come from a large family, so you need to conform. We don't have time to deal with an emotional kid, so conform. And that was enforced. And I learned early on that that gets negative attention. Showing your emotions just gets you, either shot down or put down one way or another. So I did that. Learned how to do it very well. The only problem was I was still more emotional than a lot of the people around me. So I just kept getting reinforced that it's not okay to feel. It's not okay to show emotion of any sort. And that was before the drugs ever came into the picture. So by the time the drugs came along, heck, that just made it a whole lot easier to do that. Give me a buzz, I'm cool, I'm mellow, I don't care what you do. I don't care what I feel. I don't care who I am. I don't care who you are. That worked for a while. And I even enjoyed it for a while. But I got to a point where my emotions took over. I couldn't shut them down with the use of alcohol. I couldn't shut them down with the use of pot. I couldn't shut them down with the use of coke. And since emotions were bad to have, that led to depression. And anything that happened to me that was emotional, I turned negative, which fed the depression even more. Until finally, I didn't want to feel, period. No more feelings, no more anything. I don't want to do this anymore. So I tried. And obviously I failed, which is a great thing. But when I woke up that next morning, I knew that something had to change. I didn't have the capability of living with or without drugs. And I didn't have the balls to go get a gun. So I went to the hospital. And they detoxed me. And since I had been around this program prior to that for a long time, I knew the words to make it sound good. But I was a scared little boy. And I guess I have to say I've been a scared little boy most of my life. So then I come to my first meeting again. And I always tell people that, there were people with tears in their eyes. Well, there was one especially that I really remember, and that was Anita. I don't usually say her name, but the lady met me coming in the doors with tears in her eyes and a smile on her face. I didn't think anybody would be that happy to see me. Because I'm a piece of shit. Got to go to a few meetings. Tried to do as I suggested. I hit as many meetings as I could. Things were in a state of chaos at that point, which they'd been most of my life anyway, so I felt right at home. But I'm a single father, so there's a lot of meetings I could take my daughter to,
wasn't driving, I wasn't in the other car, nothing, I mean, there was nothing I could do about it, but I felt like it was completely my fault. And for some reason, I should have been able to stop that. And after that happened, the guilt I had over the way I treated him, because he was, he didn't fit the mold of what I wanted him to be. And there's a lot I could say about that, but he was mildly retarded. He was not socially picture perfect. He was oftentimes very embarrassing. He was not the older brother that I wanted. And so then the guilt of that just absolutely flooded me. And that was all in about, the first 5 minutes after he died. And I shut down. And immediately after that is when I started using. And that helped. But, there comes that, point where you have a little break between your next drink or your next drug. And, you have to feel some minor emotions. And I threw myself into not only using, but a bunch of different other self-abusive situations. I was very suicidal. I got into a very emotionally and sexually abusive relationship, which, for some reason, anything that this guy did to me, I felt like it was my fault also. And I was raped, which of course was my fault. So the hate that I had for myself grew and grew and grew, and it didn't take long for me to decide that I wasn't going to feel anymore, like many other people have already said. And I tried my damnedest not to do that, and to cut out any emotions. And when I would start to feel anything, even anything good, it was like, oh, we can't let this happen, because, even the good feelings, they're going to eventually stop. Something's going to happen to ruin that, and then you have to deal with the disappointment, and so it was just better not to feel at all. My brother dying, I, of course, was shipped off to counselor upon counselor upon counselor by my mother, and, I lied to them all, and then when they would start to figure something out, I would tell them I didn't need them anymore. So I went through about 7 or 8 before I think I actually finally stopped with one and talked to her a little bit. She kind of kicked my ass around. And eventually, when it got to the point where I was either going to kill myself with using, or I was just going to kill myself with something else, I just went into an incredible deep depression. And there was about 3 months where I really didn't use, but I also didn't leave the couch. I wasn't there. It was like I could look in the mirror and see straight through me. There was nothing there. It was completely empty. But when I did eventually start getting into recovery and getting a program, and also getting help from my manic depression, which, aided in some healing, I started to feel again. And I remember talking to another addict, and I just said, I just don't know what to do, because all this stuff is just like, all these emotions are just like flying at me, and they won't stop, and I don't, it was like I was drowning in emotions, and they were coming so fast I couldn't deal with them, because it was like I couldn't separate one from the other, and I didn't even know what I was feeling. But eventually that slowed down. And slowly, very, very slowly, and I still go slowly, began talking about them. But nothing really was accomplished until I started creating a relationship with my higher power. And I was just so angry. And I don't deal well with, my least favorite emotion is anger, because I don't deal well with that. I'm completely uncomfortable with being angry. Up until a year ago, I never even yelled at a person seriously. I had never sat down and talked to anyone about why I used, or about my brother dying, or about other things that had gone on, or about being raped. And then I sat down with my higher power, and I just started yelling and yelling and yelling and yelling and screaming. I was in my car driving, and I ended up pulling over on the side of the road, and I'm sitting there telling God I fucking hated him, and I just was so pissed off that he even put me here, and I'm just sobbing. And I'm sure anyone driving by me probably thought, what the hell is going on in that car? Because I was just going nuts. But after that, I was like, whoa. Initially I felt like, oh my God, I just told God I hated him, And it was like, okay, I'm going straight to hell. But the more I got comfortable with that, and the more I thought about that, I was like, wow, how cool is that I just completely, freely, and honestly talked with my higher power. I didn't talk to him. I didn't talk at him. I was conversing with him, and it was like a complete turnaround in my spirituality and in my relationship with my higher power. And after I did that, it opened the doors for me to be able to talk to people. And I still don't let people in real quickly or easily, but I can do that now. And the past couple of weeks have been kind of weird. It's like lately things just the ball is rolling, and it's kind of scary. I want it to stop sometimes, but I don't want to go back to the way I was, because God knows I don't want to start all over again. As far as one thing that has been incredibly difficult for me to deal with was the abusive relationship that I was in. And one thing that just blows me away about emotions is how you physically feel them. And I was talking with somebody, and I went back in my head to places that I was with this guy that I went out with, in moments and situations and memories, and I was there. I was reliving it. I could feel his hand holding my head down on him. And I was shaking, and I was crying. I ended up going to the bathroom and throwing up. It was like, and for a moment I got a little pissed off at this person who started this conversation, because I didn't want to talk about it. But after it was all over, it was like, I can't ignore those emotions that are there. I've stuffed them long enough, and eventually, if I don't get them out slowly but surely, they're going to explode and it's going to be a big mess. And then the first night here at a meeting, I shared some feelings and emotions and problems that I have with myself that I've never shared in a meeting. And I wasn't planning on sharing it, but it happened. And this weekend I have felt so relaxed and so free and just like, it's just been amazing. And I'm not so afraid of emotions today, and I'm learning how to deal with them. And it's because of my higher power and because of the people in this program. So thank you. That's all I've got. Guess I'm sticking to
Hi, I'm an addict named Kelly. And I pushed myself out of my chair to come up here and share. And I don't know what I'm doing up here. I'm leaving directly after this workshop, and I think I'm just trying to extend my stay a little while longer because I have to get home and get home to family. And this has been really good for me. This little bit of time alone has been good for me. I'm going through a transitional time in my life where there's a lot of fear. But I also believe that I'm being directed by God. And I know that I don't need to be afraid if, this is God's direction for my life. But it's only natural to have those human emotions. I am in this body. When I was growing up, I would take whatever was going on inside of me, like the conversations I would have with my parents, and I would go to my bedroom and I would look in the mirror. And everything I wish I could have said to them, but what about your fucking drinking? What about, because I was one of those children that, because of my actions and behaviors and things, it was really easy to point your finger at me, and then nobody saw the rest of the dysfunction that was going on in the family. So I would go to my room and I'd sit in the mirror and go, only avenue, the only outlet that I have was my mirror. I was a badass in my mirror. I had a lot to say, but I was never given that opportunity to share that. It was not a safe place to share those things. When I came here, when I finally got here, I was pretty empty, and I was pretty lost, and I could really relate to what the basic text says about, the animal level, or I'm not a quoter, so being reduced to the animal level. I ate, I shit, and, I had sex. And I didn't think, I thought what you thought. I came to recovery for a long time believing that I could recover through osmosis. I didn't want to get my own. I wanted what you had. I didn't want to feel. Today, I have a closer contact with a higher power, and I mean my own higher power, my own understanding, something that I can feel the love people in our car say, if you're going to have a higher power, he should be loving, or it should be loving, and, you know, you don't feel the loving until, or you can't get the loving until you feel the loving. So I'm feeling a lot. Since I've let this God into my life, I'm feeling God is working me, you know. There's a lot of tears that are happening on a regular basis, and I know that that's just tearing some things down that need to be torn down so that I can become more of the person that I know I want to be in my heart. Because being clean and recovered for a little while, my emotions, my feelings have brought me to a place where, to another bottom, you know. I would kill myself if I did not deal with these things. I had my daughter came back to live with me in my addiction. I gave her up when she was a baby. 8 years later, she came back to live with me after a few years clean. And before that, I thought I had recovery going on because it was smooth sailing. You know, it was good. I thought I wasn't doing anything. What I believe today is that little period of rest, God was giving me that opportunity to really get into these steps and get into these people of Narcotics Anonymous and use those tools to deal with what He had in store for me coming out, which was my little girl coming back to me. I had a lot of expectations of how that was going to be. Hasn't worked my way yet. It will, because I have God. I pretty much, me being that girl in the bedroom looking in the mirror, I found myself turning my body into that. Don't feel, don't think. I don't want to hear what you have to say. I ain't got time for it right now. I believe that I've inflicted a lot of pain on her in the short time that she's been with me. I had this girl come live with me. It's exactly who, in my mind, in my perception, my feelings, was exactly like me. So unfortunately, I'm treating her the way people treated me. You know, she's always up to something. Can't trust her. She's that. She's, you know, all the same messages. It comes back. You know, I'm not aware of this shit. I'm becoming aware. Thank God. I'm sharing about it. If I didn't share about it, and I've been sharing about it at meetings, and maybe I've shared too much that people don't even want to come near me. You know, they don't even talk to me because it's uncomfortable. You know, because maybe it's what they dealt with in their childhood from their own parents. But I've had to, because if I would have stopped sharing, I would have had to kill myself. You know. So I continue to share, and you know, what happens when we come here and, you know, the drugs are not working for us anymore? We finally stop. We find a higher power. I have to lean on my higher power. And so it's gotten a little better. Maybe next year I'll be able to come here and come back and say it's gotten a little better. Maybe 3 years from now or whatever, I can bring my daughter with me, you know. I know it's going to get better because let's see, I learned about footwork when I got here, you know, because when I first got clean, you know, before I got clean, when I first got clean, I thought everything should come to me. I learned about how to work my ass off in this program, you know, just to get your phone turned back on if you're not having fun for a long time. There's a process in recovery. I do the footwork with my daughter. and I spent a lot of time sharing about that. Emotions will take you out the same way the drugs have. Not dealing with the emotions. It's no different than when I was putting something into my body, it's not dealing with the emotions, you know. And I'm so grateful that it's getting better, and it does get better. And I'm just glad I had the opportunity to come up here and share a little bit with you, you know, because I need to believe that I count too, you know, that I am my seat. And we all earn our seat here. So that's all I got. Thanks.
My name's Stephen G. I'm an addict. This is my first convention, and I'm grateful to be here, you know. I'm having a blast, you know. It's great. I'm getting to learn a little bit about Steve because for the longest time I didn't like him, you know. And emotions and feelings are something I've always stuffed for a long time. And I think, you know, growing up the way I did, you know, a man, you know, you got to be a man, you know, you're not supposed to cry, and I guess you're not supposed to feel, you know. And I remember for the longest time, you know, I never really fit in, you know. I didn't fit in anywhere. And, you know, I really, I don't know what I was looking for, but I thought I could find it in drugs. When I picked up, you know, I remember the first time I picked up drugs, you know, I knew I felt better, you know, all of a sudden, you know, everything was going to be okay. And I started hanging out with a different set of people. And for the first time in my life, I kind of felt accepted. And, you know, but I look back now and, you know, it really wasn't like that, you know. I've always run, you know, I've run from me for the longest time. And addiction really took it out of me because the bitter ends of this disease being jails, institution, and death, you know, I've experienced, I got 10 years of being incarcerated. And, you know, I remember the first time I got locked up, you know, I did 9.5 years, and I got out, you know. And when I got out, I started having these dirty urines for my PO, and I was like, man, there's nothing wrong with me, you know, I'm okay. I just, you know, I like to party. And, you know, he said, well, if you continue to party, I'm going to send you back, you know. And I knew I didn't want to go back to jail because I remember sitting there, and I remember this one guy I was, you know, friends with somewhat. And I used to watch this guy. He would go out and come back and go out and come back. And, you know, kind of reminds me of the program today, you know, my program, you know, because I was in and out a few times. And, you know, so I had to, you know, what happened was I said, you know, one day to myself, I said, you know what, I don't want to do that. You know, I seen this guy come back for like his 4th time, and I don't want to do that. So I know what my problem is. My problem is I got to divorce myself from crime. And I, you know, I said, okay, so I'm not going to pick up no more guns or nothing like that, or do all that illegal stuff. I'm going to try to fit in society when I get out. But I didn't know that, you know, that a drug problem caused all that, you know, that using drugs is exactly what had me doing all the things that I did. And I started having to come to these meetings and getting this piece of paper signed, you know, and, you know, I really didn't like that, you know, and I tell you, it was real hard. You know, I thought everything everybody was saying, not only was it real foreign, it was, you know, I thought they were way off the mark. You know, and little did I realize, you know, I was the one that was way off the mark. And, you know, I went to my first meeting in 96, you know, and I never could get, you know, every time I had to go to these meetings or go through outpatient treatment or inpatient treatment, you know, I was always having to do it to keep from losing my job or getting violated. And being the manipulator I am, I was able to stop this parole officer from signing that warrant like twice, but the third time it didn't work, you know, and after about 6 dirty urines, I ended up getting violated. But I'd went through a whole lot of pain, you know, from 96 up until 10 months ago, you know, and I mean, it was unreal, you know, just it got worse every time, you know. I never could string together, you know, like 60, 90 days, you know, and then I think one time I said, okay, I got this figured out, you know, I'm going to talk clean and live dirty. And that didn't work neither, you know, because it caught up with me. You know, because I just knew there was some way that I could use successfully. I could keep my job, have my freedom, and, you know, but you know what? It didn't happen. The dope man got my car. I lost my apartment. Lost my job, my CDL. I lost that. And, you know, eventually I lost my freedom, and I went back to prison, man. And I'll never forget when I went back. I was like, whoa, this is where I did not want to be, you know. This was something that happened that I didn't want to happen. And, you know, I said, you know, I got to, what is going on here? You know, what am I doing wrong? And then for the first time in my life, I had to look at myself. And, you know, it was real hard, you know, because, see, all that time that I was manipulating and bullshitting everybody, I didn't realize that the one I bullshitted and manipulated was Steve. And it only had me looking back in the mirror, and I said, what are you going to do? You know, are you going to continue this vicious cycle? Because I already come to the conclusion, you know, when they had them shackles on me, that, you know what, this disease isn't just going to take me out. It's going to run me through every known hell on the planet. And when it's done using me up, then I was going to die. You know, but not until then. You know, I was going to have to just live a bunch of pain, misery, and grief. And, you know, that's what I couldn't take anymore, you know. I mean, because, you know, I used to joke around, you know, to me, you know, I thought it was kind of funny looking back, because I remember from being in prison, incarcerated so long, you know, when I got out, my philosophy was, well, you know, time didn't do me, I did time. And, you know, boy, was I wrong, because, you know, I used to come around the rooms and joke around. I'd say, yeah, my name is I Like It Rough, and I'm an addict, you know. And with that, I'll pass, you know. And I thought it was a joke, you know. I mean, I thought it was a joke that, you know, I guess, you know, for real, I remember the first time I came around, I thought everybody was using and they were just lying about it, you know. Because, I mean, I was doing that, you know. And then I began to, you know the people. You know what I'm grateful for is that the seeds of Narcotics Anonymous got planted in my head, because eventually, you know, something happened, you know, in my life that changed my way of thinking. And then that's when I discovered that's what my problem was. You know, it was my thinking, you know. And, you know, one of the biggest problems was my thinking, you know, and the way I felt and emotions, you know, and I never could deal with. The only thing I could do that I know that I did was I got high, and, you know, all this grief and misery went away, this pain, and then I came down and it was there again, and it was worse, and I got high again. And it was like living the same day over, you know. And I knew I had to change my way of thinking, you know, so I had to come. Probably the hardest thing for me to do was to surrender to the program. You know, it was easier for me to admit I was an addict, but to accept that I was an addict and I had to stay stopped in order and work some steps in order to get clean. That was the hard part. And you know, today I got 10 months in a couple days clean.
All right.
And it's unreal, you know. I mean, I really should be dead for all the things I've been through. And you know, today I realized that you know, not only did I have to give up the drugs, but I had to give up the lifestyle, because, you know, the game kicked my ass and I lost. You know, I lost. And today I'm learning how to live life on life's terms without the use of drugs, and it's difficult. Some days are better than others. And you know, I'm enjoying it though, man. I'm making some new mistakes today, you know, instead of them same old ones. At least I'm not practicing insanity, you know. And relationships. I get into relationships, you know, and something I learned, you know, I just got out of a relationship, and it was no different than when I was in active addiction. You know, it's like a human drug. It feels good. They smell good. You know, women, and you know, I the thing is, see, I got to get in a relationship with a good relationship with my higher power, and then get in a relationship with Steve and learn who I am, you know, before I can be functional in a relationship with someone else. And you know, thank God I was able to, you know, see that today and learn that. Now I was only able to figure that out through this program and a sponsor and a higher power, you know, because those are all higher powers for me, you know, the fellowship and everything, and they're tools that I have to use and apply. And you know, I learned, you know, there's something that makes me tick, and you know why I don't like being by myself. You know, I have to figure that out. But I'm learning today. You know, I'm getting more is being revealed to me each day that I stay clean. You know, and the fellowship is, wow, the greatest tool of all. You know, because other addicts showing me how to live. You know, and how to deal with life on a day-to-day basis. You know, because it was addicts that taught me to get high, taught me how to get high. And today they are teaching me how to recover, you know, and I'm enjoying this. And I mean, you know, I come up here to speak because, you know, since I've been here, I've been like nervous all of a sudden. I don't really want to talk to people except people I know and everything. And I know I had to get out here and talk and everything. I mean, I'm having fun, man. I can't remember the last time I can remember doing stuff like this, you know, was before, you know, my disease was a problem. That was a long time ago, you know. And man, today I'm having fun, and you know I'm not using. You know, that's the amazing thing, because see, I thought at one time I thought I used to have fun when I was using, and then eventually, you know, I became a slave to addiction. And you know, today, you know, that was a process. You know, I didn't start out a full-blown addict. You know, at least you know, like doing the things that I did at the ends of my addiction. You know, today it's different. And man, is it different. You know, it's like I'm relearning so many new things, and how to have fun is one of them, you know, and I'll keep coming back. That's all I got.
Hi, I'm Louise, and I'm an addict. You know, I wasn't going to come up here. I was going to sit and be real emotional out there, hearing my story be told by each individual that came up here. But, and then I was going to leave because I was really emotional. But that's why I came, because I'm really emotional, and I don't know what to do with these emotions. The emotions versus feelings. You know, because all this stuff was coming unlocked. And like now I'm going to cry, and I don't know why. You know, my friend said, are you going to go up there and share? Are you going to get honest? You know, and I asked her, honest about what? Because I didn't know. You know, and that's one thing that has been a problem for me. I won't ask out of shame. But you guys keep telling me that's how we grow. Mm-hmm. We have to come here and learn. You know, because I can remember from the first guy that came up here and shared his story, they walked me through the events of my life. You know, starting out with these feelings are useless, they get in the way, and they can harm you. You know, so I learned to shut down early in life. I learned to shut down around 4 or 5 years old. And so a lot of the tools or anything that would help me cope with anything was gone, because most of that stuff I wasn't going to feel. And then I'd have to tell myself certain things in order to digest whatever was happening in my life. You know, just like his slogan was, well, you know, I did the time, or, you know, time didn't do me. That was, he had to say something to help him swallow that time. Right. You know, and this is how my life went. I had to make up things that helped me cope. It wasn't real, you know, but I had to create a world in which I could survive. You know, And like now I was sitting back there thinking, what is a feeling and what is an emotion? And how to separate the two. I can't separate it because I don't know the meaning to it. You know, I remember going in treatment, seeing the little one-off paper with the faces on them. And I would sit there and I would look at that piece of paper, and every time that I would go through something, I'd have to run and get that piece of paper. Because I didn't know. I didn't know what name should be on what I'm feeling. Okay, I'm feeling happy.
Yeah.
I could describe happy. You know what I'm saying? And I could describe sad. And I could describe anger. And I could describe frustrated. That's in the story. That's all I knew. Anything in between, it was all or nothing. That's all I knew. And it was like, my God, Louise, what's wrong with going back and getting that piece of paper to help you get from where you are to where you're trying to go? Because it's like I'm still here telling myself, I know all this stuff. And then when situations come up, I'm unequipped. I'm inequipped to handle whatever is going on in my life. And like I said, I didn't want to come here and leave the same way I got here. You know, I'm in school now. I got custody back of my son. All is going well, but I'm falling apart because life is happening and I don't know what to do with it. And I'm not asking for help because of past shame and guilt that I'm still carrying. You know, I have a 14-year-old, and just like the lady that was sitting here, I don't have time for that shit. I you know, don't talk, go somewhere else, you know, because I am not emotionally equipped to help him. So now he's getting just what I got. And that's not fair. You know, it's not fair. And I told him, I've got to learn how to do something else. It's killing me. I'm a piece of mother. I'm a piece of a recovering addict. I'm a piece of an employee. I'm a piece of a student. I would like to become a whole person. You know, it's like, what is my primary purpose? Where do I become the most important person? You know, it's like I've skipped stages in this process. And just like she said, I thought I could just get what you got. I didn't, you know what I'm saying, know that I had to do the footwork because I didn't believe y'all did all that shit that the book said do anyway. You know what I'm saying? It's not that I didn't believe you were clean. I just didn't believe you did all that shit. You know what I'm saying? I didn't believe you went and talked to your sponsor about all that shit and you got your pencil and paper and wrote that shit, and what you didn't know, I didn't believe you sit down and looked up every word in the dictionary. You know, and the only way that I had to come to that acceptance is now that I'm in school, I have to do that.
Yeah.
Because I can't fake my way through this shit. Even though for the first semester I tried. I tried to take the notes and get it from that. No, you have to read that damn book that you purchased at that book store. Because the rest of that shit's in there. You know, just like here, I can't just come to the tables and get that information and talk to my sponsor. No, you know that blue book you purchased? You're going to have to read it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I'm trying to find an easier, softer way, and I've always done that, and it's never worked. You know, just like the open speaker was saying, well, I don't believe that my disease last night, without the use of drugs, how do I keep repeating the same mistakes? I'm doing something. I said, well, damn, for 3 years now I ain't used drugs, but I'm still doing that same dumb shit. Wait a minute. Well, then what's wrong with me if it's not my disease? You know what I'm saying? It's like, well, I'm using drugs. I asked, I said, well, what do I call that? I didn't know what name to put on that. You know, and a lot of shit I do know, but once I say it, I have to own it. You know, I don't want to say I'm lazy, but I want the positive results that I see you get. You know, but then once again, once I get busy, it's back to the emotions and the feelings. Now it's time to deal because I can't fake it any longer. You know, my sponsor says, fake it till you make it. Okay, you know, it's time now. I guess I faked it as long as I could. You know, and see, for me, I didn't need to hear that because I faked through most of my life. With the, you know what I'm saying? That wasn't a suggestion for me, but I didn't know that. I've got my sponsor up here. You know what I'm saying? I don't know where the basic text is, but I got my sponsor right here. You know, because here, once again, I'm seeking all this information from everybody. And everybody don't have that one solution. That maybe had worked for her. But what I found out, it damaged the hell out of me because I kept faking it. I faked it through, you know what I'm saying? I faked everything. Faked the, I love you, honey, can we get married? Now that I step back 14 years later and look back, there was a marriage of convenience because I couldn't stand his ass. But I knew his mama was going to pay to get me out of what I was in. You know what I'm saying? And once I got honest, you know, and so I've always faked it. I've got a personality for whatever is happening. You know, that's how I adjusted. That's how I learned to fit in. If you was bungee jumping, and I wanted to hang, well, then I had to learn how to damn bungee jump. Come on, I've done this before. Go, let's go. You know, and that's how my whole life is, just a chameleon, just blended in, whatever's going on, whether I liked it or not. You know, I never stopped to ask me, well, what do you like? Do you want to do that? No, because I still want to be accepted. But I haven't even accepted myself. You know, but I'm really enjoying myself because just like he was saying, damn, once I start sharing that stuff that was holding me down and locking me up, it's not that bad. You know, it's not that bad. You know, and it does, for me, I found out that the secret that I keep doesn't have to be morally fucked up for it to kill me. It could be just a secret. It could just be something that I'm having a problem with that I'm not sharing. You know, but I thought if it was like something old dirty, you know, back in the closet, back, you know, way back, you know, no, this is some recent stuff. These are just the recent secrets, you know, coupled with, you know, now I've got that baggage, last year's baggage, and I'm still lugging that stuff over here, and that shit's getting pretty heavy, you know, and like I told my son, I said, honey, we can't go home the way we came. Once again, I'm focusing on him. No, you need to get kid here and get some help over somewhere in one of these campsites, and I'll go get mine. But as I asked God to help me get whatever it was I needed to get so that I wouldn't have to leave, like I came, he said, it's you, honey. It's you. It's you. Because believe it or not, he's listening to what you're saying. But how willing is he ready to comply when everything you do is, would you do that right? Can you do this again? Can you stop that? Can you come over here? Can you go over there? He's 14, he knows. You know, he knows. And since I started taking a look at the part that I play in aggravating him or blowing the situation out of, it's gotten a lot better because it's me. Stop, just, he's not going to die, he's not going to hurt himself, he's going to be okay. Let it go. You know? But once again, I found out that when I'm in turmoils on the inside, I seek control on the outside. It's like, come on, put this right here. And if you just set that right there. Because all this shit on the inside is all scrambled. And it's going haywire. So I've got to get something under control so that I can be okay. You know, but I found out that shit's only temporary. You know, now that saying that you say it's an inside job, it's making sense. Oh, I can straighten this shit all I want to out here, huh? But until I go inside, it's not going to get any better. You know, the cliches are coming to life for me. You know, and I'm feeling so much better. It's like, it's okay that I don't know, you know, because that's why I'm here. Because there was a lot of things, there was no nurturing in my house. There was no, this is how you handle this in my house. You know, most of the things that I learned about life came from the streets. You know, yet here I am, this emotional, loving, kind person. There ain't no kindness out there in the streets. Not in the game I was in. They didn't give a damn if your feelings was hurt. You know what I mean? They didn't care if you wanted to go home and lay down. What home? Sit your ass over there. You got the money? You know, so feelings and emotions, I couldn't have them. You know, yet I had them. You know, I couldn't express them. You know, and pretty soon I didn't know what they were. You know, and I think that's the biggest part now. Fear of not knowing, the shame of not knowing. You know, because I don't know how to raise a child. You know, I have to come here, and how you're raising me, I have to take it home and give it to him, because I'm growing up right here. You know, I was telling my girlfriend, I said, well, I turned 37 the other day, and I feel like I'm 16, 17, mentally and emotionally, because I've been clean a couple of years, so a couple of things I've learned. You know, and that's okay. Because where am I in a hurry to go? It's like I'm trying to, and then somewhere at the end of the day, it's like I'm fried out, burnt out, and crazy as it was when I started, because it's go, 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 go. You know, I was a crack user. I didn't want to go to sleep. Let's speed this thing up and let's go. Why do you want to snort that stuff? Aren't you getting ready to go to sleep? Wake up, let's go. You know, I couldn't get that. I didn't want to slow down, you know, and so now in recovery, I got to learn how to slow down. You know, and don't give me a cup of coffee. I've had 5 this morning. Let's go, guys. You know, my thinking tell me I needed a jump start. You know, and I can't understand why I'm so unmanageable. I'm rushing through everything. Oh, damn, I forgot. You know, got to go back, start all over, come back. You know, I don't know how to slow down. I don't know how to even take time for me. I have spurts and intervals of how to take care of me. You know, I just thank God that I'm becoming aware of what it is. You know, because it's hard to change something when you're not aware of what it is. You know, I guess I had these great expectations of you guys versus me, or you guys versus my clean time. It's like, well, 3 years, yeah, I should know it all, right? I should be well on my way, 1 through 12. You know. Hell, I'm still working on 1. Surrender. You know what I'm saying? Do you know how to surrender? Well, no, not until after my ass is tore out. No, I don't. You know, and I guess it's just allowing, take time. It's okay, Louise. I don't think nobody expects me to know it all. That's me expecting me to know it all. Yeah. You know, that's the image that I had to portray out there. I couldn't tell them damn people I didn't know shit. No. I couldn't tell them I didn't know what I was doing. You know, I had to act like I did. You know, but slowly but surely the masks are coming down. You know, because they're not serving any purpose anymore. These are defense mechanisms that I had to use to survive. You know, I'm recognizing that they don't work anymore. I'm trying to learn how to live, not just survive. You know, that battle is over. The using battle, all I had to go through and where I had to go and how to go, all that's over. You know, I understand it. I don't have to create that war again. You know, because I do understand I have a choice. You know, now it's like, okay, now, next. You know, and that's really where I'm at. That on step 7, 8, or 9. Well, we're going to work all these things real quick now. Let's run by them one more time. And let's see if I can do 1 through 12 today. Can we get started? Can I start on the fourth step? Can you be my sponsor? I mean, all this in one day. Now this is, it's like, okay, I got to get there. Then tomorrow I won't want to do half that shit you suggest anyway. You know, because the pain won't be right there. Immediate pain won't be there. You know, I was talking to a girlfriend the other week, and I was in pain. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. I had an exam coming up. I hadn't studied. You know, all this. I'm going to fail. Oh, my God. They told me I would. Now I'm going to have to pay back all this money, and I'm not even halfway through. Oh, my God. All this stuff hit me at once. Oh, my God. They're going to take my son. I'm going to beat him to death. I'm going to catch a case. I just got out of jail. I'm finally on parole. All at once. And I called, and in the midst of this conversation, my line kept beeping. Somebody would call me on my cell phone. Somebody would page me. And I wasn't aware that each time one of this happened, I answered the phone. You know, and the girl that was on the other end, she says, I don't know, but I was at work, because she's self-employed. She says, I was writing a column for my paper, and at that moment when you called in your crisis, it all came second. She said, but I noticed that every time your phone beeped and every time that your pager went off, you answered it. And I said, so what you're saying is, you put me first, but I put me last? Everything became more important than me in less than 5 minutes. But what I called for, because I was on the verge. You know, I needed to talk. I needed some help. But all of a sudden, all this other shit still was more important than me. You know, so I know in that area I had some work to do. Because I still don't love me enough to put me first. Because without me, there is no school, no job, no son. And just like he was saying, stop taking on other people's shit. You know, you got a problem? Oh, come here. Let's talk. Now, let me see now, what can you do to get this worked out? My ass tore out. I ain't took care of me, ain't did what I need to do to get my ass up off the ground, but yet I still the caretaker. I'm tired of fixing shit. You know, I'm tired. I'm really tired, and I guess that's what they say is, are you ready to surrender? You know, to the principles of this program. You know, and I guess I've hit my bottom again. You know, and I guess I'm ready to learn how to live this new way of life. Thanks for letting me share.
Thanks for the
Feel it? Pretty sure, which is more almost a half hour over, so it's kind of hard. I never do follow instructions. They told me to stop this meeting on time, but
All right. Well, I don't have a lot to say, but my name's Chris and I'm an addict.
hey, Chris.
I was sitting here, I was thinking about feelings and emotions, and I remember that when I first came into this program, I found Narcotics Anonymous through a psychiatric ward for which I'd sat for 4 days on suicide precautions. Confused, lonely, angry, tired, hungry. There was probably a multitude of other feelings that I didn't know how to express, and so it all came out in one simple way. It all came out in depression or anger, in the depression itself. When I came to this program, I heard two things that really stuck out to me. I think I heard in my first meeting. A gentleman once said that either we're going to grow up or we're going to die. The other one said that if we keep a secret inside of us, it continues to grow. And as long as we keep a dark secret inside us, we're still sick people. That was before I even got my sponsor. So when I found my sponsor, I took those two things that I heard, and man, I was telling my sponsor everything. But I told him everything without feeling. Look, da 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 da, and this and this and this, and you have to know about this and this. And I was just so open. I told my sponsor everything about me in probably the first 3 days that he knew me. But there was no feeling behind it. I had no feeling. Like when I was telling him, I wasn't going through the pain. I wasn't going through the process of getting rid of these things. So guess what? I had to do it again. And I had to do it using the steps. And it's like I can be so open and share so much of my life with so many different people. But if I haven't gone through the pain and the process to get rid of the pain, then it's not worth me sharing with them. And I was just sitting here and I was thinking about that, and I wanted to share that. And that's all I've got.
Thanks, Russ.